Mountain View. More people, good. So my name is Jeff Keltner. I am the Business Development Manager for Google Apps Education Edition. And they asked me to come here and give you guys a little, if you're not familiar with the Mac, that'll seem really weird, but I use the Mac very heavily. A little presentation and demo of what we have in the Google Apps for Education. Can I ask a couple questions real quick? Who here has a Vanderbilt Gmail account? Like 2 people. Fabulous. I'll start with Gmail. Who has a general Gmail, like a public Gmail account? Listen, I like to see those kind of numbers. All right. Has anybody used any of the tools outside of Gmail? Docs, Calendar. Well, this is like a knowledgeable crowd. All right. So I put like 6 slides together. These are my funny slides. I skipped all my boring slides. And we'll go through these real quick, and then I'll pull up a live demo, and we can go through. And feel free to interrupt throughout with questions. I think the group is small enough that if you have questions, feel free to just kind of shout them out, and I will repeat them for the camera since I'm mic'd, and then I will answer them for you. So the real thing, I thought we had a slide before this. Didn't I have a slide before this? No. The real thing we saw a lot of was that users were really focusing now on collaboration. A lot of the software we had was really focused on personal productivity, right? I had my computer, my Outlook, my software, my files, but so much of the work we do as students, as faculty, is really focused on teamwork. It's working with students, it's working with colleagues, it's working with classmates, it's working with people, and it's just not by myself. See, that was the slide that's supposed to come first. And my basic example of this is always just a document, right? And I do this a lot. Well, I don't do it anymore, but I used to when I worked at a not-so-progressive company. I'd write a document, version 1, and I would mail it out to my 4 colleagues. A couple of them would, write some edits. They kind of draft it. They'd save it as, they put their name in the file name or something like that, and they'd mail it back. And I'd spend like an hour pasting together all this stuff, and then I'd send it back out, and my 3 colleagues would send me back their thoughts. But I've always got at least one colleague who's a little slower than the rest. You guys have the slow colleague? And my slow colleague is like 3 or 4 days behind everybody else. And so they send me a draft that's like based on something that was not been good for a week and doesn't really match my last draft. And then I'm sitting there for like hours trying to figure out how does that, I don't even know what to do with that anymore, right? It doesn't even make sense. And this is the challenge our users face. And they face this trying to do something as basic to the way we operate today as work with 4 colleagues on a document. I mean, I do this at least a half dozen times every day. And if it's challenging, that means the technology is just not meeting the needs of our users. And so we talk about cloud computing. And we talk about moving all that data into the cloud. And I think the real benefits to users, to you guys, about the cloud computing model is twofold. First is the concept of collaboration. So as all that data moves into a single cloud, right, I can now collaborate. And you'll see this in Google Documents, but there's no more emailing back and forth. There's no more question, what's the most recent version? There's only one version. It's the version in the cloud. And whoever connects to it sees the current real-time view of everything that's in there. And so the ability to collaborate very quickly on content is greatly increased by moving to this team-oriented cloud model. The second thing that's useful about the cloud is that you can access it from anywhere, on any device. I actually reviewed this presentation on my flight this morning on an iPhone. It's true, on an iPhone. I'm looking at it on a laptop. My favorite example is I gave a presentation 2 weeks ago in LA when we were at USC. I gave it to some partners in the area, and I flew into California about 2 days before my laptop died the day I got to California. I mean, hard drive kaput, and the tech guy said we can try and salvage the data, but the hard drive is actually clicking. It's going click, 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 and I don't think anything's coming off of there. Now, normally this would be cause for concern 2 days before a big presentation, but my presentation was in the cloud. And so they handed me a new laptop. I dialed up Google Docs. My presentation was there. And actually, 2 of my colleagues had been updating some of my statistics. And so my presentation was actually updated from the last time I had looked at it, immediately available from a new computer as soon as I got Firefox, Safari, whatever your browser of choice is. So that concept of access from any device is also very powerful. So that's not good. My wife is calling. I think what we're going to show you today is how you can use Google Apps to communicate effectively and efficiently. More importantly, to really focus on moving from just communication to really collaboration, to really how do you work together with groups of people using these tools. I think the benefits really are access from anywhere. And there's, I didn't say this, but there's nothing to install. There's nothing to buy. There's no patch comes out. There's no upgrade to version 2007. There's no, this happened to me for a long time. I'm on a Mac. Kept getting docx files. And there is no 2008 at the time for Mac, so I couldn't open a docx file, so I had to write back. None of that happens, right? All that there is your web browser and your data. And so it really simplifies life. And there's none of this, do I have the latest version? Do I have to go buy the version? Is it compatible with my version of Mac OS 10? I don't know. So really getting away from all of this. So what I'm going to do now is come into this is live on my cellular data card, so forgive me if the internet connection is a little slow. But this is an example of what you have access to through a Vanderbilt Gmail account, through a public Gmail account, in terms of the tools. Now, people here are pretty familiar with Gmail. No novices, so I'll show you my 2 favorite features of Gmail, and then I'll move on, because my experience is people don't know a lot about the other things. My first favorite feature of Gmail is this caret. See this caret right here? Now, the beauty of the caret is that I can control my entire email with keyboard strokes. So I'm going to open that email, enter. I'm not touching the mouse. Right? I can archive, I can delete, I can move my messages around without touching my mouse. This decreases the amount of time I spend managing my inbox by roughly 50%, because there's no more drag and drop everything. Wow. You're a professor now, Miriam. My friend Miriam is sitting in the front and is assisting today. Annoying might be another word at certain times. So you can turn on keyboard shortcuts in the settings panel of Gmail. Keyboard shortcuts on. If you go to the help menu, there's a full list of them. I was a MUT user. I was a Pine user. I was an Elm user. I love keyboard shortcuts because they really do help you simplify the complexity of managing your information. My other favorite thing is new. So you may not have seen this, is Gmail Labs. So if you go to the Labs tab in Settings, these are actually new features that are not yet released or not necessarily sure to be released, but things that you can do. And one of my favorites is this. I can actually have pictures. If the user has an IM picture, it will show up in the chat message. Obviously, we've not set one up for this particular user yet. There are a variety of signature tweaks, the ability to do different dates, all sorts of different things. And what I think is one of the most useful Gmail Labs features, which is called Email Addict. If you enable Email Addict, I will enable Email Addict and save my changes. I think everybody should use Email Addict at least 5 times a day. I ask that my team do that. Email Addict puts a little take a break icon up here on the top, and when you click it, it prevents you from using Gmail for 15 minutes. It says, take a walk, get some real work done, have a snack. We'll be back in 14 minutes. There's almost no way to get out of this, so it's a very nice way to prevent yourself from getting into that I'm going to do whatever hits my email inbox next syndrome that so many of us spend our days in. So that's Gmail. But let's get on to the other stuff. Google Calendar. Who uses Google Calendar? Show of hands. 23rd, 20. Yeah, I know you do, Miriam. Thanks for sharing. So Google Calendar, I'm going to just point out, looks a lot like a calendar. What I have here is, though, the concept of multiple calendars. So you'll see here in red, well, it's kind of more of a dark gray on the projector screen. It's supposed to be red. If you see my screen, it's much nicer. I've got my personal calendar. This is the things that are on my calendar. If I want to go add a new event, I can click somewhere. I can add an event. What's really interesting about this is the ability to start incorporating additional calendars. Tennessee Titans, who set that up for me? That was nice. Animal Planet. Do we have any that actually have events? There we go. And so you can create secondary calendars, share them with groups of people, and then have those calendars displayed right next to your personal calendar in this view. We use this a lot. A great example is actually the bus tour. So I'm not going to every stop, but when I log into my calendar, I can see my calendar in blue. The bus tour is red for me, so I see it very quickly. And I can see exactly where the bus is going to be. I also have a calendar for my marketing team. It tells me what conferences we're at, where we may be exhibiting. I have a calendar for my product team that tells me when we'll be pushing new releases of products. And all of that is integrated very nicely into this view. So you can definitely see how this could be used very easily for group calendars, for things where you want to share time-sensitive information but don't necessarily want to put it on your personal calendar. This is a great way to kind of bring all that information together, up to and including, I'll go to month view. Keyboard shortcuts are for calendar too. Go to month view, and you can do public calendars as well. And so the Tennessee Titans would be a good example. where I can go and see just this was published by I don't know who, but it's a public calendar from the web that I can subscribe to and have right on my calendar all of the Tennessee Titans games. I actually do this for my alma mater's football team, their basketball team, and their baseball team, and the PGA Tour myself. Because when I'm traveling, which is a lot, I want to know what's going to be on the TV when I get back. Can I watch a game, who's playing, that I may care to partake in viewing on ESPN or Fox News Bay Area, Fox Sports Bay Area when I'm lucky and can get a Stanford game, which is rare. The other things you can do with Calendar that are really fun, if you come into here, each of your calendars can be shared. So I can go and I can actually share my calendar. I can share it with varying degrees of kind of functionality to other users. So you can just see when I'm free. You can see everything about my calendar, or maybe in this case I've got an assistant, Amanda, and Amanda can actually add things to my calendar, alter things on my calendar, take things off my calendar, or manage my life. In my life, this would be my wife. Her name's not Amanda, but she pretty much controls my life and my calendar. You can also set up notifications by calendar. Do you want to get SMSs? Do you want to get pop-ups? Do you want to get emails to remind you about events? One of the really popular ones is SMS, and if I actually can go and verify my cell phone number, I can have notifications about events texted to my cell phone. I can also text from my cell phone, look up my agenda for the day, look up what my next item is, or even add an item to my calendar directly from SMS messaging. We also have a variety of ways to integrate this into an Outlook experience if you're an Outlook user. A great WAP interface for the iPhone, so I use that. Also ways to integrate through some partners into things like Windows Mobile or Palm or BlackBerry. So a lot of different ways to leverage the calendar. Any questions on the calendar? I'll stop for questions after each application, because we're going to go through a couple. Questions on the calendar? It's great. You're all going to go out and start using it 100% of the time as soon as you leave here. Yeah? Pushing data to your calendar from another system. So there are two ways to bring data into the calendar from another system. One, we can subscribe to anything that's an iCal file. So anywhere you've got a published ICS file, or what's known as the iCal format, you can subscribe, and that's how a lot of these calendars here are done. Alternatively, there's an API, so if you have, from an institutional perspective, back-end data stores that you'd like to push data into the calendar, there are a lot of ways to do that programmatically. I'd be happy to talk to you about that in more detail. I'm not sure the whole group wants to hear about the specifics of my APIs, but there's a rich set of APIs to both look at the data in the calendar and push data into the calendar. I've seen some really cool things. The coolest thing I've seen done with that was actually at Abilene Christian. We were there a couple days ago, and they had LCDs outside their meeting rooms, and they had their own interface to show you what the events for the day were. So it doesn't look like Google Calendar, but it's actually pulling the data out of Google Calendar and then showing you, as opposed to, we print, like you guys, paper every morning and put it in to tell us what's going on that day in the rooms. They actually have LCDs, and we're pulling that data from Google Calendar to show them when the room was available and what was going on in it every day. I want to do that for Google, but I'm told we have a lot of conference rooms, and the LCDs get pretty pricey when you buy that many of them. Am I going to get commentary now on my presentation? Yep.
So one of the big issues is we're all on Exchange. Everybody can see free busy. Is there a way to pull free busy from Google Cal into?
Is there a way to pull free busy from Google Cal into Outlook? So there's a way to look at it from Outlook. Yes. There's also a way, if the institution sets it up, that you can actually, and I'll come in here and show you what, we have the same concept. So if I'm coming in and I want to check guest and resource availability, I'll get this pop-up. I can add, what's that, Amanda, to this list and see what their schedule is. Now, most of these people are pretty free because they're fake calendars. But you can imagine, same kind of concept here. You'll see the dark to the light at the top, indicating if you have more and more people, when is it totally free, when is it totally not free, and what are the varying shades of gray in between. We find that the find the next available time feature is pretty useless because I don't have any time when more than 3 people are all available. At least the 3 people I need to talk to. And so we do this. You also have meeting room resources, and there is at an institutional level a way to integrate this with Exchange so that if Outlook users are looking, they will see the free busy of Google Calendar users, and if Google Calendar users are looking, they will see the free busy of Exchange users. That's absolutely possible today as well. But that requires not a user-level configuration, but an institutional-level configuration between the Google system and the Exchange system on the back end. But can be done, and we have a lot of customers doing it today. So we have a mixed review of the Google Calendar sync. Are you using the Google Calendar connector to do that?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember whatever your link was that I could do.
Yeah.
Like way back when, and initially it started out was perfectly. Everything was syncing. If I put something on Google, it went back to Outlook.
So I would recommend looking at, there's a partner of ours called Companion Link. Companion Link. Companion Link built software specifically to do Outlook and mobile device integration with Google Calendar, so that if I want to use Outlook but have my data in Google Calendar, I can do that. And their software is actually quite good at doing that. They won an award recently for the quality of it. It's better than the free thing that's out there that we're kind of working on, yeah. Our tool is really in beta, and I would recommend from a production environment that you use something like Companion Link. Anything else on the calendar? All right, move on to one of my favorite sets of applications, what we call Google Documents. Anybody here use Google Docs? Docs for sure. A little more than Calendar, that's surprising to me. Google Docs is a word processing, spreadsheet, and presentation environment. It's not PowerPoint. Somebody called my presentation a PowerPoint earlier. It's not a PowerPoint. It's a Google presentation. But it's basically a web-based environment for you to do the things you would traditionally do in a desktop-based Office suite. The difference really is that all your data, as I discussed, is stored up in the Google Cloud. You don't know where, you don't know how, and to be honest, you don't care. Right? Why do you care? It's all available to you through the web browser. And so I've got a couple of these documents open that we can take a look at. This is an example of a Google Doc. I've got some tables in here. I can insert things like images. It does, I call it it does 80 or the 30% of the functionality that you use 95% of the time. It's not everything. If you want really complex layouts and formatting, there are desktop publishing tools. What we've come to find is that much more of what we're doing in documents is about collaborating on the creation. It's really about the content itself, not the format. And the content we really need to work with our colleagues on. And so what you can see down here in the bottom right, and I'm going to see if Miriam does something interesting. I don't know what she's going to do. But also editing now, Professor Joyce Sorensen. And so what's happened is I've gone and I can click this share button right up here. Click Share with Others, and I can start adding people as either collaborators or viewers only of my document. And those people can log in at the same time, at different times, and edit that document. If they're at the same time, I will actually be able to see, as they edit the document, the changes they're making. I'll refresh every couple of seconds, and I may get changes in colors, changes to text. If they do it at a different time when I log in, I'll just see the most recent version. So there's no more that, wait, did somebody send me the updated file? Am I opening the current version? Oh, shoot. You can always see exactly what's going on. One of the common things we do to get through version control issues is actually this, where you see the comments being made here. So you can insert a comment. So a lot of times what we'll do is have one document owner, a lot of collaborators. The collaborators by protocol will just comment on the document. The owner will then go through the comments every couple hours, maybe after a day, incorporate them into the document, email back out to the group, hey, I've taken all your comments into account, I've re-edited the document, you want to go and take another look. We've really seen a dramatic decrease in how long it takes to iterate on content because of this. Because there's no more of this, well, I'll send it out and then wait 3 days that everybody has a chance to review it, and then I'll look at the comments they sent back. You're starting to do it in hours. So a lot of times we'll do this in just a matter of hours to turn around press releases and things. And so I think the real power, and this goes across all of the applications we're going to talk about now, is this concept of sharing, of collaboration. Google Docs. Any questions on the documents? No? Docs is kind of easy. Someone deletes it all? Don't do that. I don't want to recover this document, Miriam. Here you can see a comment that she's adding right here. Real time. This just popped up in green. So what happens here? It's a very good question. What happens if somebody deletes it all or makes a really stupid comment or is on the way out the door and decides they want to just wreak havoc with what you have? You'll notice this file revision history option. We actually keep all the old saved copies of the document. You can go back and compare them to see how it's changed over time, to see who changed what, and then you can actually go back and revert to an old version. If I were to open up version 34, you can see that Professor Sorensen has been editing, and I wanted to go back and revert to this version. I could click right there and revert to it. It'll get rid of all the newer ones and go back to this point. So you can absolutely do that if you like, if you find the need. And I think the practicality of that kind of issue limits, how many people, I often get the question, how many people can you share a document with? Theoretically, it's in a couple hundreds. Practically, I don't recommend giving 400, 500 people edit access to a document because you're going to get into either collision issues where people are editing the same text and overriding each other's changes, or you're going to get into somebody being malicious with certain parts of the document. So there's a very practical limit. But when you're talking about, the blog posts that we're posting about this bus tour along the way, that's the kind of thing Miriam will probably write in docs, send out to 5 or 6 of us. We may add some comments. We maybe want to highlight this thing. She'll revise it, say, okay, I'm about to send it out. Anything else you want? Bam, it's posted. We may do that in a matter of 4 or 5 hours. So I think practically speaking, it's not a hundreds, it's a 5 to 50 kind of number. I'll also say this about docs. You'll find yourself, or I hope you find yourself, using docs in ways that you never would have used existing tools. And my favorite example of this is actually, we hold a team meeting every Monday, except this week because we were all in Texas. And we have notes for the meeting. We have an agenda. And the agenda comes in a Google Doc. It's the same Google Doc we've been using for about 2 years. And the notes, the agenda actually morphs into the notes throughout the meeting. We have a dedicated scribe. That scribe basically watches, we go through the agenda. They type in notes about what's talked about. We put action items at the top. We put a horizontal line in. I can go back and show you insert horizontal line. Insert horizontal line. And then we put in the agenda for the next meeting. And so when a new team member comes and they want to look at what's been going on for the team for the last couple of months, you can go right into that doc. You can see the entire history of the meeting notes. It's a living, breathing document. I did not do that in any program before. It's something that became possible because of the collaborative nature of these tools. And so you start to see yourself not just replacing an existing tool with a different tool, but saying, I have a tool that now allows me to do things in a very different way. How might I use that to be more effective with the things I need to do, like distributing notes from meetings, things like that. So we see a lot of very different kinds of use cases. All right, next application. You've seen this one in action. Google Presentations. This is actually what I did my slides in. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. You can open this one up too, Miriam. You can see it looks a lot like a presentation tool. We do some very rich things like drag and drop. So you can see dragging and dropping to reorder slides. I've got all my content here. I can insert rich forms of content, text, images, video from YouTube. I can do some basic shapes, put them on my slides here. I also have fun things like themes. Where are themes? Change theme. And so I can go and I've got that's the background. I can do colors and images, but change theme. And we've got a couple of built-in themes. So if you want to use the chalkboard theme, if you wanted to switch, where's my favorite theme? There's my favorite theme, the grass theme. I love the grass theme. I don't know why I like the grass theme, but the grass theme is just my favorite theme. You can change that very simply for all your slides. So a very rich experience. It does what you want with presentations. It does some basic animation. This is new. So if I right-click on one of these items, I can do what we call an incremental reveal. An incremental reveal will, in the order I select, reveal the items. And so you saw me doing that with the slide with the document earlier. That was one slide that was incrementally revealed, the various elements. What it really does, though, is it focuses, on, I think, back on the content. So much of what I see with presentations today, so many of them are bad. I mean, like mind-numbingly bad. And so much, I think people think if they make a slick presentation with the right animations and colors and sound of like screeching brakes and breaking glass when their bullets come in, then it won't matter that they don't actually know what they're talking about and haven't spent any time building the content. I really don't like that reality about how so many people are doing that. And I think the tools that give you all that capability kind of foster that culture that says, hey, that guy gave a cooler presentation, so I got to make mine as cool. And so what we really wanted to do here is make it very simple to focus on the content. And hopefully for students that are learning to give presentations, the style and the ability to actually present to the audience, not, I don't do this too much, but read my slide, which we see a lot of too. So how do you really focus on the content, not the format? And that's really what I think Google Presentations is made for. The other cool thing with Google Presentations, I can click Start Presentation. So this is actually what I was doing earlier. If you go back over to this web browser, this is just a Google presentation. That's my email. You'll see that what I get is a URL. This is really cool. If you send anybody this URL, they'll be able to log in not to the presentation tool like they're editing it, but just to this presentation view. There is a group chat capability here, so you can have a group of people that may not be in the same place viewing the presentation. We view this, it's same thing, a lot of people say, is this like WebEx? Yeah, I mean, WebEx has 9,000 features. This has like 2, but it's a 2 I use, right? I want to chat with people and I want to share a presentation with them. And as I click through, people can actually follow as I click through the different slides. And believe it or not, I've gotten it to work with my remote. Right? Remote control. So I was kind of proud of that. So very easy way to share your presentations. You can actually embed them into websites as well if you've got a slide deck that you want to share with your group, and we'll kind of show you some of that later when we get to sites. Any questions on presentations? Did I miss anything, Miriam? Any questions on this? Yes, no, maybe so? You're all going to give up PowerPoint and Keynote. I was a die-hard Keynote guy, so this was really hard for me to totally get into. Any questions on this? No? Quiet group. The group grows and gets quieter throughout the presentation. I don't know what that says about the style and the format and the substance. All right, now we get to what is my personal favorite of all the applications, which is Google Spreadsheets. I know the product manager very well. I love him to death because he gives me the coolest product ever. This is Google Spreadsheets. Spreadsheets is a pretty spreadsheet-looking tool, right? I mean, that looks like a spreadsheet. It does all the things you'd expect. I can do things like formulas. Let's do this. I'm going to do a formula real time. This is, always sketchy to do formulas and to do things in real time. Hopefully this will work out for me. So let's just imagine I'm doing a budget. I want to see my numbers, get my total. I've actually gone ahead and created a graph here. So you can see that I can, if I go back to the edit, let's make that actually look like money. There we go. And if I go to edit, I can insert charts. I can insert a lot of other content, and I'll talk about some of that later. Charts is probably the basic, and you can see all the basic graph types here coming up, I hope, that you can make with Google Spreadsheets. So it does kind of all the things you want. I've got formulas, I've got charts, I've got tabs. You'll see the tabs at the bottom. The cool thing about the charts that I really love, you'll see that I can, let's do something here, 1500. Changes immediately. One of the fun things about this is I can actually publish it as an image. And as I publish this chart as an image, I get a URL for the image. And any website I put that image into gets the up-to-date data from my chart. So if I've got a graph of something that I want to share with the world without actually sharing the data, I can do that. And all they will see in the website is just that image. And we can actually go back and show this to you later. So this is a really fun thing to do. You can also insert as visualizations what we call, I think we call them gadgets at this point. We're going to move that name to visualizations. A whole lot of different kinds of ways to visualize your data. This is one of my favorites. If you're familiar with Google Finance, where you can actually drag and drop the section of time you're looking at a piece of data over, and it will zoom in. It's got a very rich way to view data. You can actually have what we call heat maps, where if you have population of a state by state, population of a country by country, or other information by state or country, you can have the bolder colors for bigger numbers and the lighter colors for smaller numbers. So lots of really rich ways to visualize data. The absolute coolest one I've ever seen, I'm going to get rid of this gadget. Have you ever seen this one, Miriam? Insert gadget, the motion chart. This thing is crazy. I can't actually fake data for it because I don't understand it. But if you look this one out, it actually takes data on 4 axes. One is the point, so the XY axis. The next is the size of the ball, and the fourth is time. And so it'll actually graph in 4 dimensions, and you can watch these things change over time. It's just crazy. Lots of ways to visualize your data. You can see basic things like organizational charts, maps if you have addresses, or the heat maps we talked about. So lots of really cool concepts here. The last thing I'll talk about, and I'm always scared to do this because it never works for me when I want it to, is a function we call a Google Lookup. And so I can actually, you can see all the functions I have here. I've got a couple Google functions. One is Google Finance. So I'm going to look up Google Finance. Oh, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to double click it and put it in. I didn't want the help entry. Close this now. For the symbol, I'm going to put, what is it, A13. And here I'm going to put price. I think that will work. Nope. This is why I don't usually demo this one, because I don't know how to work the formula. It's actually going to Google Oh, shoot. Why'd you let me do that? 419. So it's actually pulling live from Google Finance the price of those stocks. It's up? 419. Now, I sold my IBM at 85. So I'm upset about that, and I certainly I'm not going to sell my Google at $4.19. So, so you can actually do lookups from the web to put data into this. And there's a variety of other features you can look up, things like state capitals, country capitals, populations. If you go through the help menu on those formulas, you can get a whole lot of content on that. But really cool ways to bring data in from a different variety of places into your spreadsheet. So really fun stuff. There are also, for the programmers in the room, APIs to insert and pull data out of any cell in a spreadsheet, so you can do really rich interactions with different kinds of systems. If you'd like to push it in there, model it in a gadget, publish the gadget to a web page, there's lots of really cool things you can do with this. One of the coolest we saw was actually Reuters. And Reuters was using this exact graph function. They were publishing the graph to their homepage, and they were doing it. They were just manually entering the data off a survey they were doing. They didn't tell us, and so the Spreadsheets team was looking like we had like a 10,000% increase over a span of like 2 hours in the hits to the graphing function, and we didn't. So we're like, where is that coming from? We're like, Reuters.com. So, well, I guess Reuters is using it. So we just called them up, and they said, is there a problem? We said, no, just we'd appreciate if you put the Google logo on the homepage and give us some credit, and they were happy to do it. So you can do really cool things with some of these. Oh, you can also, is that you? It's not even you. You can actually chat within the context of a spreadsheet. So if you've got people who are working together, who are building a spreadsheet, you can actually have communication right here within that context. Any questions on spreadsheets? Oh, wait. I haven't gotten my favorite part yet, have I? My favorite part. All right. Forms. So we noticed, there's not a lot of data in here yet, but one of the things we noticed is that a lot of people were sending around spreadsheets or emailing people a list of questions and then putting all the responses into a spreadsheet to graph the data. We said, this is really silly. We can make this life much, much easier. And so one of the things you can do is turn a spreadsheet into a form. And you will be able to use an editor like this. You can actually say create form, but I've already created the form. And you can go and say, I just made it, where do you want to go for spring break? What do you want to do? If you go down and edit these things, you've got a whole different list of kinds of choices you can give people, range from 1 to whatever, choose from a list, paragraph, text, whatever it is. When you're done, you can email the form to people, or you can actually give them a website to go to the form at. That's just going to look like a basic form, and I can actually pull that up for you. It's going to look like, where is it? Share more actions. Go to live form. The live form looks like this. It will look like this in their email, and they can actually fill it out right in their email and click submit. We will thank them much. And let's just give it a shot. Where do I want to go? I want to go to Mexico and parasail, and I did not like last year. So you'll notice when I hit submit, I get a thank you. If you come in here, here's my entries. I want to go to Cancun and parasail, and I did not like the vacation last year. The other thing that is really cool about this that a customer had to tell me about yesterday, so I'm a little embarrassed about this, is you can go to this View Responses tab in the form editor, and you can actually get a graph. So we're about 30, 30, 30, right? Third, a third, a third on San Francisco, New York, and Cancun. And you can see where people fell in terms of what they wanted, how well they liked last year's vacation on the 1 to 5 scale. Automatically built. So if you're looking to really simply collect data, whether it's, what sandwich do you want for lunch, here are your 5 options, or, some sort of a survey about a class, a very simple way to do that, and a very simple model because you're actually using a spreadsheet. And we all know and love spreadsheets, right? Except that it's now embedded with a form for you to use. This is my favorite. I mean, when the guys told me they were doing this, my jaw just hit the floor. I was like, this is the coolest thing we've ever done. Maybe not quite that cool, but close. All right, any questions on spreadsheets? Yeah? That's a good question that I should have covered. If you have an existing Excel spreadsheet, can you put it up here? The answer is yes. Import. You can import Excel, CSV, Word docs, text files, HTML files, PowerPoints, kind of whatever you want. The simpler way to do it is probably from the Google Docs homepage, and there's just an upload. And you can choose right here what file you would like to upload. It will import. You can similarly, go back to Docs. If I'm in this, I can file and export this out into the same kinds of formats. And one of my favorites is you can actually export out to PDF. And so a lot of Windows users, Mac users all get export to PDF kind of built in native. A lot of Windows users struggle with how do I turn my Word doc into a PDF file? How do I turn my PowerPoint into a PDF file? It's built in part of all these applications to send a PDF out to you when you're done. It'll just download right as a PDF.
Anything like a pivot table?
Anything like a pivot table? Not yet. I mean, I think what we've really tried to do, again, it goes back to what I said earlier about docs. If you're really a number cruncher and you need pivot tables to do in-depth analysis, there are tools for that. They're really good. There's numbers on the Mac, there's Excel, there's lots of stuff to do that with. This is not really that. It may become more of that over time, but so much of what we see, if I look at spreadsheets in Google, 80% of them are basically lists, and you're mailing them around, asking everybody for updates every 5 days, and then sending around the updated version or putting it up on a file share, right? And it's your sales pipeline, or it's your list of whatever it is. And this is really meant to solve that problem of, I've got a basic information, I want to do things like graph it, I want to share it and collaborate on it, and I don't know how to do that. And that's really where we targeted this application today. Another fun thing about spreadsheets you'll see here in purple, this is actually the cell that Miriam is sitting in right now. The more people come in, the more colors I get, but I can actually see where people are in the spreadsheet, and you'll see that she's got her 2 colors. She's logged in twice, probably outside.
What about security? And I don't mean login type security, but
Over the internet encryption, I'm not using it now. If you put an S in front of this, SSL encrypts all the transmissions. We obviously always encrypt logins. It's really not very secure to send plain text passwords over the internet unencrypted. That would be bad. But you can encrypt all of the applications we're talking about today just by putting an S into the URL. HTTPS, good to go. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you guys look for data within these things?
Well, I like to read your email personally, but so kind of a complex answer on this. The basic answer is no. The more subtle answer is yeah. I mean, especially email content. We have to. We don't do it on a personal level. We don't do it on a manual level. But there is automated processing of all the data, right? I mean, a program is looking at all of this data. That's how it, actually computes the formula values for your spreadsheets. That's how it draws the graphs. There's an application reading that data. Similarly, for mail, there's an application reading the data saying, is this spam? If so, put it in the spam folder. Don't clear out their inbox. Is it a virus? If it's a virus, don't let them download the file and run the virus. That would be bad. So we have automated mechanisms that do, for your protection, look at the data. There is nobody reading your mail. There's nobody looking at your data. We're not selling it. We actually aren't allowed to give it to anybody else outside of some very specific circumstances like, bomb threats and court orders from the NSA and things like that. So the basic answer is no, but there are obviously subtleties in that answer. But everything that really looks at your data on any sort of a regular basis outside of extraordinary circumstances is a program. We're not tracking it. We're not looking at it. We're not mining it. We're just doing what we need to do to, gotta run some applications across data to do a spreadsheet. That's really at the end of the day what a spreadsheet is.
The data mining was specifically what I was curious.
Yeah, that's.
If I'm doing certain things with a spreadsheet,
We don't have any idea.
tailor my.
If you're doing something with a spreadsheet, we don't have any idea. We just don't know. Other than, the application knows that it can do what you want it to do, but that's not something that's being targeted, mined, and tracked for you like a big profile of you. That's just not being done. Other questions on spreadsheets? Forms is cool, huh? This is cool. I love this. This is my favorite thing. All right. Close that. Close that. I'm afraid Firefox is going to die on me as I got like 6 windows open with like 10 tabs each. Let's see, I need Chrome.
Doesn't run on the Mac.
Yeah. I can show you Chrome on a Mac that was hacked using Wine, but I can't show you Chrome on a Mac. So the last application I'm going to talk about today is this one. It's called Google Sites. Google Sites is a web creation tool for non-technical users. Also could be considered a wiki or a wiki, although I always like the term wiki because my product manager calls it a wiki, and now I'm just like hooked on the term wiki. So what this is just a website, except that when I go to edit it, I get edit page, I click it, and it's going to look not like some sort of complex technical tool, but exactly like the Word document editing interface we had earlier. So we actually took our document editing concept and brought it to websites. I consider sites really valuable as team homepages. To me, it's the central hub for collaboration. So if I talked about my team earlier and how we use all these things. We have a lot of spreadsheets. We're actually doing a survey of customers through Google Forms. Got about 600 responses right now, so I'm really happy with that. This is where we keep everything, right? So if I have a document, it's linked to from my site. So when I get a new team member, I say, go to this site, and you'll find everything you need to know. Links to all my presentations, links to all of our spreadsheets, pictures of all the team members. Everything is kind of here because this is our home page for the team. It can also be a personal home page, but it's a home page. What's really cool about this, 141 days since end of season, we should really start tracking towards next season, I think. What's really cool about this is the ability to integrate various forms of content. And you'll see a couple of them here. I can put images in. I can put Google Calendars in. We talked about calendars, so if I made a calendar for my group, I can embed it right into a site. If I've got documents or presentations or spreadsheets or spreadsheet forms, I can embed those directly into the site. If I have an image, you'll notice that it can ask me for a URL, web address. So remember what I told you? Actually, this is crazy, Mira. I'm going all the way today. Publish chart, yes. There's my image. You can see the URL for the image right there. This had better work, or I'm going to look really stupid. What do you think, Miriam? What's my percentage chance of this actually working out right? 100%? There you go. Add image, save. You're safe. And there's the image coming out of a little small window here. There's the image coming out of my spreadsheet, embedded into my site. And if I went and were to change the data in that spreadsheet and reload this page, this image would change, right? So you can imagine if I do that off of form data, I can essentially create a Web 2.0 app. So I can embed YouTube videos, calendars. These are Google gadgets that are being pulled from the public web. So if you go up and you were to resize this thing, it's a little too big. Small. Oh, medium, large. That works. If I were to go up and insert a Google gadget, we call that more. You can see that I've got a lot of gadgets that are just built on the web that I can go and insert, whether it's the joke of the day, the Pac-Man, sports scores, maps. Ooh, that's not good. Baby wild animals, turtles, moon of the day. Baby wild animals, really? I really kind of want to add that to the site. Aww. I mean, how do you not like that? You got to like that. I'm totally adding that. I'm totally screwing up the ski team site, but this one kind of fits with the ski team theory. So you can add all sorts of content to your, not being able to click OK though. Now we hit an error. That's nice. To your site and create this rich team site. The other thing you can do is just add multiple pages. So if you want to have not just the primary page, yes, I'm sure, but extra pages, maybe a page about the team, you can do that. And there's a variety of different page types you can use. So one is the basic web page. One is what we call announcements, which is kind of like a blog. Another is what we call a file cabinet, which is where you can actually upload files of any sort and save them, and they'll actually be version controlled. And another is a list, which is just you define the fields, and it basically looks kind of like a spreadsheet. The cool things about doing announcements or file cabinets is if I come back here to the home page, you'll notice that we actually have announcements, and I've embedded the most recent announcements into my home site. So not only if I clicked here on View More, could I actually see the page I created with all of the announcements and the full details, but I can go and say, show me the most recent 5 on my home page. So if I've got a class announcements page, I can see basic headlines of the most recent announcements, and then I can also see full details of the full announcements on this announcements page. What's this? Weekly trip report. Oh, YouTube. Skiers response. I don't know what any of this stuff is. It's kind of fun. The other thing I will show you very briefly, if I come back here. This demo, by the way, Miriam, this came out a lot better than the last one. I got to say, last one I screwed some things up. Campus Store has the form, right? Yeah. So you saw earlier some of the same basic ideas. You saw earlier where we created a form in a spreadsheet. You can also embed not only the spreadsheet graph, but that form right here. And so this is a different form. I won't pull it up for you, but I can fill it out right here within the context of the site. So if I have a site for my project, for my class, for whatever it may be, and I want to embed that form into it, I can do that right here, have the form on the website. As people fill it out, I can update the graph that I had already embedded in my website. I mean, you can see this is a very rich set of capabilities here in Google Sites. So I'm going to stop talking about sites now and see if there are any other questions about sites or anything else you would like to know about.
Will I also be able to upload or download some photos into the file cabinet, or
Absolutely.
the file cabinet's the best place to do that?
File cabinet's the best place to do it. The other place to do it, and I want to be very clear about this, is not a part of the Google Apps suite. So if you're using the Vanderbilt Gmail account, it does not have access to this particular tool. But Miriam will appreciate my saying this because she used to work on the team. Photos.google.com is a very rich photo sharing capability. You can upload images. You can actually edit them. Oh, shoot, I'm already logged in. Let's go here. Try not to show anything too personal. This is a trip I made through Southeast Asia, actually on business. This is a friend of mine. He was an Air Force pilot in the Singaporean Air Force. That's Manila. That's Manila. And obviously, that's Singapore Airport. And that's Kuala Lumpur, the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur. If you ever go, there's a place called Traitor's Hotel right across the street. The very top is this bar I'm at. It's open air. It has a 2-lap pool, and they turn it into a bar at night where they just put the bar all around it, and it's open air right across from the Petronas Tower. So it's a really cool spot. And I was very lucky to have a native of Kuala Lumpur taking me around, so I got to go see this particular spot. But it was one of the highlights, I'd say, of the trip is seeing those 2 towers in KL. So anyway, photos.google.com, great way to share photos. You can embed these things into blogs. I'm glad I didn't click on my triathlon photos. It's not bad. So yeah, I would recommend taking a look at that as well. Other questions? Anything? Nothing? Anything at all? Nobody cares about Chrome? No? Timeline for Mac? Depending on how desperate you are, available today. I'm serious. There are some third-party developers. I think I dumped this in here. Some third-party developers who went out and, so X11 runs on Mac, which is a Linux-based, usually a Unix windowing system. Wine is a Windows UI emulation mode that runs under X11. And somebody went out and actually built a version of Chrome that runs under Wine, under X11 on Mac OS X. It's called Crossover Chromium. This is it. So this is actually what Chrome looks like. I will tell you the UI is a little slow because it's under like 6 levels of emulation, so it's not real good, but it is there. I don't know exact timeline. I can tell you that at least Sergey and I are asking the engineers to build it. About a good percentage of Googlers use Macs, so I'm desperately waiting to be able to use Chrome, and a lot of us are, so it's something we're very committed to doing. I don't know exactly when we'll finish it. The code was always intended to be cross-platform, and so we are mostly working on the UI components to get those to work properly in each of the native environments, which is where most of the true differentiation of code has to take place. So we're working on that very quickly. Other questions? See, I asked that question. You guys got to ask your own questions. You can sign on. So I'm not sure. Does anybody here know if they're giving all you guys the Vanderbilt Google accounts? Right now it's just for students. So. Yeah, you guys are killing me with this. And I've got like very few undergrad students in the room, so thank you guys for coming. If you go to just google.com, you can create an account and get access to all these services. If you are an undergrad student, I think it's gmail.vanderbilt.edu. Am I right there? And you can actually set up one of these accounts that has your vanderbilt.edu identity as opposed to a gmail.com identity. If you have Gmail and Vanderbilt, different people on different systems, you can absolutely interact. So if you've got students using the vanderbilt.edu Gmail and you have gmail.com Gmail, you can still share documents, you can share sites. All of this capability still exists. The sharing works perfectly between the two. So there's no issues there. You're welcome to do that. But apparently, for the moment, I'll have to find Matt later today and tell him that he needs to fix this. But for the moment, it's only undergraduate students that can get the Vanderbilt branded and controlled accounts. Other questions? Android. Wow.
Is it true T-Mobile's going to have the phones next week for sale?
Are you really expecting me to answer that?
Yeah. It's only a week away.
Well, you're bolder than I thought. I don't know.
All the blogs say it will.
Yeah. I read the blogs too. I don't know when it will launch. Certainly, we are working with a variety of handset manufacturers, HTC among them, to produce devices running the Android environment. For those who aren't familiar, Android is a mobile computing platform that Google has built in open source. So it is essentially the software that runs a mobile phone, a lot like what you would experience on a device like this. We built the platform and are giving it away for free to anybody who wants to make a handset. And we expect to see handsets, the official word is before the end of the year. The blogs think it's going to be sooner than that, sooner rather than later. I'm not at liberty to discuss when we'll actually be releasing, when someone will be releasing a device running Android. It will not be a Google phone, I want to be clear. Google is not making a phone. We have built that software level, and third parties, including HTC, who's a cell phone manufacturer in Taiwan, will be releasing phones that run on that platform. It's really cool. I think it's a really great platform. And the real goal with it, and why we got into Android, was that we began to notice a couple of really interesting things. If you look at the percentage of mobile web searches done from this particular device, the iPhone, it vastly outstrips by orders of magnitude any other mobile computing platform in terms of how much people are using the web on it. Because the experience of using the web on this device is so much different than any other device. That's why half of Googlers walk around with these, right? Because it's just a better mobile web platform. And what we said was, from a Google perspective, the future is most people who experience the internet for the first time over the next 5 years will not experience it on a PC, on a desktop or laptop. They will experience it on a mobile device. And a lot of what's happening right now in innovation is happening in mobile computing. And we said it's not acceptable that there are only a very small number of platforms that really enable a rich mobile web experience. And we said we're going to build a platform and make it free so that more people can get a really rich web experience on a mobile device. And that's where we're going with Android. So we want to really make it very simple and easy for you to go out and get a phone that will provide you a very rich experience when you want to access internet applications from that mobile device. And it won't, it certainly is a general computing platform. We've made it totally open source, so anybody can use it, modify it, do whatever they want to it. And so it's out there, and we expect to see some really cool stuff coming out with that in the future. But I still have this, so I don't know what that tells you, but there it is. Any other questions? Chrome, Android? Just don't ask me about Yahoo. Eric Schmidt talks about the Yahoo thing. I don't talk about that. Anything else? Bueller?
Any truth to the rumor that there was a
Truth to the rumor. This is a bad way to start a question.
that there was I think it got scuttled when you decided to go to the mobile platform instead. But any truth that there was a Ubuntu version, like a desktop Linux?
A desktop Linux called Ubuntu?
Yeah, that was
I mean,
similar to Android, be put out there as a
I'm not familiar with that. What I will say is a lot of our developers run Linux. I happen to run Mac OS X Leopard on this machine. Some people run Windows. We have a lot of Linux work going on in-house. Our data centers are run on a proprietary platform, but it's based on Linux. And we took Linux and we really hardened it. We basically said take everything out that we don't absolutely need to run Google services. We wrote our own file system to run in the massive data centers that we operate. And so we've got a lot of experience with Linux. We've contributed a lot of code back to the Linux community. So in a sense, is there a Ubuntu? I mean, we have customized versions of Linux that we run internally. I'm not aware of any plans to release them, or aware of any plans to make our own version, flavor of Linux. I'm not aware of that. That doesn't mean it won't happen tomorrow. It just means that I'm not aware of it. So I'm not saying no. I'm just saying not that I know of. But certainly Linux is something that we are committed to. We do use very heavily, both in the data center and in the personal computing platform area, and something we've spent a lot of time contributing code back to, helping develop in to make sure that that it's a useful platform for folks. And also, things like Chrome, we do intend to have that run on Linux. So we want to continue supporting that as a choice for people in terms of the platforms they use. I thought the guy with the camera had a question. Nope. Anybody else? Before I get any more, rumor has it.
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you guys for coming, and I will stick around if you got any more questions. And the bus, I should talk about the bus a little bit, right? The bus that Miriam put together, a bus tour. We've been doing Google Apps for educational institutions for about 2 years. And I was going to say we've had a lot of conversations with CIOs. I've had several with Matt here. They've been fabulous, but we really wanted to come out and get a chance to talk to users, to students, to faculty who are actually, as an end user, touching Google's tools. And so we got this biodiesel bus with solar panels, and we're driving about 5,000 miles across the country. And I think Peter's got to go back, poor guy. He left today, our bus driver who owns the bus. And we're driving to 10 college campuses, parking it on campus for a day each. Today is our Vanderbilt day. And talking to folks. It's right outside, so feel free to stop by. We've got live demos of all this stuff going on as well. So you can go check out the bus. And we actually do have Wii with the plasma in the back of the bus running Rock Band. I had 4 nurses today playing Rock Band earlier, so feel free to stop by and have a go. It's a lot of fun, and you can come kind of check out the Google bus, which is what brought us all here today anyway. So thank you guys for coming to this. I hope it was useful, and I'll stick around and answer any questions if you have more. Thanks.